Cheers. First of all, tell me, why are you here in Chorzów now?
For a couple of years now, Bloodstock have run Metal to the Masses, which are competitions which are worldwide, and they do them for young bands and for less experienced bands in order to compete against each other to pick a great band or a couple of great bands to appear at the Bloodstock Festival on the New Blood stage. So it's quite cool. You get the opportunity and the experience of going to a major festival outside of Poland into the UK and then seeing how it works and hopefully, you know, inspiring you to continue doing what you're doing. So they have them all over England and they have them all over Europe now and in South America, and this is the Polish one, Metal to the Masses Poland. So this is all Polish bands representing Poland, and they will fly the flag for Poland at Bloodstock Festival in August. So this is the competition, and myself and a few selected guests, we get to come and judge the bands. So we're not kind of judging who's better than somebody else. We're just looking for a great band to represent Poland and their metal scene, their underground, and give them an opportunity to play a major festival which is outside their home country. So I'm here now. Tonight is a warm-up show. It's Friday, and tomorrow is the competition day, and it'll be full competition all day with the bands, and then we'll select, me and my fellow judges, Simon Hall's here from Bloodstock, and we'll select a winner and send them to Bloodstock for the festival.
So you have been on few events like this.
Yes.
So have you found any band that you are still listening to?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some amazing bands. You know, the first year I think that I witnessed a band, they were from Łódź. Some of them were from Łódź and from Warsaw, yeah, they were Satius. They were amazing band, and so yeah, I kind of stayed in touch with them for quite some time. And Sempra were winners last year, a very young band, and they're from this area, I think, from close to Krakow, some of them. And yeah, they were an amazing band. They're kind of like an arch enemy, but very young, and they're working on new music, and I had dinner with them yesterday. So I kind of stay in touch with the bands because, you know, I like to follow through and keep in touch with them, you know, particularly from the competition, because the bands are so good, you know, and they're so keen and they're developing and it's so exciting. Like there were some bands last year at this location where, you know, they were like, it took me back to kind of the 1980s. It was like watching a young Metallica or watching a young Exodus, you know, thrash. I love thrash. And these guys were amazing, you know, so I've been following them ever since, following their profiles and staying in touch. So yeah, and the same thing here. I've seen none of the bands who've been in the competition live, so this is going to be my first time seeing them live. Of course, I research them online and I try and keep in touch with them and stuff, but I do that kind of after the competition, because, you know, I don't want to be influenced by anything, or, you know, because you don't want to go into a competition and go, I really like these guys, so then you're already thinking, I want to pick them. But you know what the hardest thing is there's so much amazing talent, and last year I could have picked 5 bands to all win, and so trying to pick 1 from 5 is so hard, because you feel you're letting everybody else down. And because they were so amazing, that's why I like to keep in touch with them and offer any help, you know, if they need some advice or if I can help in any way. And so that's why I like to stay in touch with the band. So, yeah.
Except being here, do you visit some places around? Do you have time for this?
Well, yeah, yesterday I came a day early so I could, you know, I went and got a tattoo from my tattoo guy, because I've got a few tattoos everywhere. And so when it's a very special event, you know, I try and get myself tagged. And every time I come to Poland, I get at least 1 tattoo. So I had a special one done yesterday. And we were going to go to the museum, but we went down by the river in Krakow and we sat and had coffee and we just talked, and we talked about the monasteries and the castles and the knights that are buried there. And yeah, and I try and see as much as I can when I'm there, and try and soak in some of the history, you know, particularly in Poland. I mean, I do it everywhere I go, but I want to eat good Polish food, what they love to eat, because that symbolizes Poland through your food, but also the history, because, you know, particularly in this region, all over Poland, of course, but in this region, there's so much history because of the migration of people, Silesia, and we were just talking about the bordering between the Czech and Russia and Austria and Germany, and so there's so much richness here to get into. And the food is influenced by those, the taste, the flavors, the salads, so yeah. So I try and soak in as much as I can, so see as much as I can. You're always limited with time, which sucks, but it's like, I don't want to go to Paris and walk past the Eiffel Tower like that. I want to look at it because it's the Eiffel Tower. And, I always try and put my hand on things. Like I went to a knight's tomb in Krakow last year, and I put my hand on the tomb. And the same hand has been on the Great Wall of China. It was on a pyramid. It was on the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty. So, I know that I put my hand on it and left some of myself. I was there. So I think even more than taking a photograph, if I can touch, like I went to the river and I touched the water in the river, so I know when I see that in a picture that I've had my hand in there, and that's kind of leaving my trace and taking a bit of it with me, yeah.
So touching the history. So you can say that you are a guy interested in history in general?
Yeah, I think so. My major was American history, was from the independence, but then I studied the native tribes, where they were, how they migrated down, and how they evolved into the Americas, and then what happened from the Europeans arriving and the Spanish and everything, the ugliness that happened from there. Because I think for the Americas, it's like living history. I can't go back to 600 AD to find out what was happening in Northern Europe, but I can almost touch America and see the progression from Western movies, from the migration for the gold rush, from the natives who were there with the buffalo, and so that was my major, and that just gave me an interest on everything historical, and everywhere you go, particularly in Europe, there's some amazing stuff that you didn't. I was literally sitting by the river, and my tattoo guy was here, and my other friend was here, and my tattoo guy said, blah, 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 something about the Pope. And he said, yeah, because he used to live there. And I turned around, there's a house, and there's a picture of the Pope. And Pope John Paul, I think, said, this is where John Paul lived. And I'm like, you see, it's right behind me, and I never would have known that. So it's living, breathing history everywhere. You don't know you're in history, until you look or somebody tells you. So I find that very exciting, very exciting. So yeah, I've got a great interest in that.
So being in a band who can play across the world, this is the addition that you can know the different cultures and bring something for you. Absolutely, and that's beyond money, because you can make money being in a band if you're Metallica, of course you can, but you can also not make money if you're in a band, but that doesn't stop you ever playing music. And the one thing that I wanted to do was to meet people everywhere on the planet. I wanted to try all kinds of food. I wanted to look at all kinds of vistas, mountains and jungles and forests and rivers and waterfalls. And I wanted to try food from all over the world and see what it all tasted like. And some things you like and some things you don't like, but just try it all. I just wanted to experience life. And I think that that's the one thing that I'm more privileged about being in a band, that I get to travel, and I get to meet people through my music. I get to eat all kinds of food. I get to see all kinds of things, and I get to hear all stories about the history, the local history. Because when you go to, Belize, you end up in Belize, in Central America. Someone wants to tell you the story of Belize. So they tell you about the history of Belize, or Colombia, or Paraguay, Uruguay, or Manila, or Singapore. And I find that incredible. You find out things that you might not have looked up in a dictionary or Googled until you had to. So, it's a privilege to do that. And of course you get to play music, which feeds your soul and makes an emotional connection to people who may not even speak language the same. I remember being in Beijing, and I couldn't ask for a cup of coffee.
because I didn't know Mandarin, so it was really difficult. We had an interpreter, but when the interpreter left, they just didn't speak English, so we couldn't even communicate. But then you go on stage and you play a song that they all know, and they all sing the song. They're all singing it. So you think, oh, I've already communicated, and they can't speak English and I can't speak Mandarin, but we came together beyond politics, beyond religion, beyond language, just because of the music. Yeah. And we were all playing the same thing and singing together, and everybody was smiling. That's wonderful. And that's icing on the cake, you don't have to have the best car, you don't have to have a fancy house or a swimming pool, and you don't have to have a room full of cocaine and a toilet full of drugs and alcohol, but people, that being able to connect to people, to try their food, to hear their language, to learn their culture, their history, and their traditions, that's amazing. You go away enriched, that they exist, they know you exist, and now it doesn't matter how far you go, they are still there, and they know you still exist. So that's what's amazing, yeah.
Are there any places that you haven't been but you want to go with a band or just by yourself?
I think once you start digging the hole, you never get to the bottom of it. You never get to the bottom. You just keep digging. And so all the amazing places I've been, Tasmania, New Zealand and Australia and through the Asia and Japan and China, Russia, in South America, I've been to everywhere apart from Venezuela. And so I'd love to go to Venezuela. I shot a movie in Mexico. And so I lived in Mexico City and I lived in Baja, Mexico, so I was very fortunate. I used to live in Canada, so, the Canadas, I've been to every state up there. I've been into Alaska, but I'd like to go to Alaska a bit more. There's places in the world that, and if you go to Greece, it's like I've been to, the main island, and I've been to Crete, and I've been to a few of the other islands, but there's still a shitload of islands I've never been to. And, it's always discovering. I've been to Egypt, but not other places in North Africa, apart from Tunisia. But then there's all of Africa, the continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. I've never been anywhere in Africa, and it's huge. So it's like, I could go everywhere there. So yeah, I think you never stop discovering something. And Brazil, Chile, Argentina, and of course Africa as a continent, and Russia. I've been to Russia. I've been to loads of places in Russia, but it's a vast, vast country. Mm-hmm. So there's a million places you haven't been yet. And so even one country, I come to Poland a lot. I've been to these cities many times, and to the north, Poznan and Gdańsk and of course Warsaw, Łódź, but there's still a whole load of places in Poland. People go, have you ever been to? No, where's that? And then they tell me, it's amazing. And so it's like, wow. So, you never get to the end of it. So yeah, there's still a million places to go and to see. So yeah, it's exciting. And if I can go there with the band and take the band, is great. But if I can't, then I go on my own excursions and discover something new. Yeah. And even if it's for, a couple of days, you can be surprised. You go to Prague for 2 days or Budapest for a weekend, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. And you'll want to go again and again. And there's so much to discover, So if you can't go for a week, go for a few days. You still will enrich yourself, yeah.
As you said, you were in many places, but tell me if there are any place that you know what you can expect, but it was beyond your imagination when you saw this place.
Absolutely. I'd say beyond everywhere else, Tasmania was a surprise, because most bands don't go to Tasmania because it's a small island off, it's Australian, although it's Tasmania, but it's just off the mainland. And it's a small island you pass over between New Zealand and Australia. And we were doing a tour, and I said, why are we not playing Tasmania? And they were like, well, it's just a small island. I went, I know, but Bon Scott wrote a song about a woman from Tasmania who had a paw. I said, I'd like to go and see Rosie's bar. And they were like, oh, well, we could ask. So we played the bar in Tasmania.
How was the crowd?
Amazing. Of course, you know, they were all metalheads, maybe 120 people, but we're going, fuck, you're playing Tasmania. Nobody comes here. And I said, well, you know, but you guys are all fans. They had T-shirts, albums, and they were going, well, yeah. I said, but would you go to New Zealand? Nah, it costs a lot to fly there. What about Australia? No, we don't really go to the mainland to see bands. I said, then that's why I'm here. Oh. Because how could I fly over you twice, knowing that I could stop and play, but not do that? I said, so why not? And so it was amazing. But I think beyond that was Japan, because it's Japan, the culturally, of course, but it's like nowhere else on the planet. I can't even describe it. You know, China's not like it. You know, Korea's not like it. Vietnam's not like it. You know, they all have that Asian culture, but Japan is something completely different. And the first time I was leaving, I remember at the airport, I felt like I was going to cry. I didn't want to leave. And I was going to the point, I don't want to go. And they're going, yeah, it's okay. Well, you could come back. And I'm like, yeah, but I really don't want to go. And I felt like I was losing something. Mm-hmm. So the next time you're going, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get there. And you tried to do everything really slowly, so you don't want the time to creep away. And then I spoke to two other people who are friends of mine, both well-known musicians, one singer and one guitarist, and they both said they had the same experience the first time they went. When they were leaving, they felt some weird emotion and a pull. And I said, it doesn't feel like you're still on the same planet with the same, even though the people are the people, mm-hmm. It's food, there's cars, there's everything that everywhere else has got, but there's something different about it. And they said, yeah, but I can't figure out what. I said, neither can I. But it's amazing. If you ever get a chance to go, you will absolutely love it, I swear, I swear. Some of the food's a bit weird, but delicious. So, you know, I remember they gave me fermented oats for breakfast. Mm-hmm. Try this. I was like, okay. So I was brown, and it looked a bit like Cocoa Pops, and it was all gooey. I was like, wow. But I tried some. I was like, that's weird. I don't know if I like that taste. And so I said, what is this? And they said, oh, this is fermented oats. It's traditional breakfast. Right. I said, that, no offense, but it doesn't taste so good for my palate. I don't know if I could want to eat that again. I mean, it was okay, but it's a bit weird. I said, why do you ferment the oats? Because it's rotted oats, it means rotting. But what happened was, when the emperor had the Japanese soldiers fighting with China, they didn't want to eat Chinese food anymore. They got bored of Chinese food and they wanted Japanese food. So the emperor filled up ships, sailed all the ships to the Chinese mainland, and then shipped the food to the troops. Of course, he put oats in there, but because traditionally they would have it for breakfast. But by the time the food arrived to the army, it was all rotting, because it took 6 months to get there. Mm-hmm. So it was all rotted. But the Japanese soldiers didn't care, because it was Japanese food. So they ate it. And because they ate it, they got so used to eating it, they wanted more. So they wanted more the rotting oats. And so it became a traditional thing. So when you eat it, it's symbolic of that and those soldiers, you know. So again, something kind of weird in a food, but there's a reason you're eating it that way. And that connection between the history and the tradition, so you feel respectful every time you eat it, you know. So I had to have it for breakfast the next day, but it wasn't so good. Not for me, but yeah, out of respect, yeah. Amazing.
All right. I hope you don't mind that we can dig some in history.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how did you end joining Venom? Well, do you remember your time when you first time be on stage as Demolition Man?
Yeah, well, the Demolition Man was from much earlier, and that was my band Atomkraft, and we were doing a show, and in those days we'd all play solo, so you'd have a drum solo, a guitar solo, a bass solo, and so we were young, and we were like, yeah, we're going to do solos, and so I wanted to do this solo. And I was a bit crazy, but anyway, I ran across and I tried to jump on top of a table, but my cable for my bass was wrapped around my amplifier, and it pulled over and smashed on the floor, and all the tubes came out and it was on fire. I was like, fuck, so I ran across, I was trying to put the fire out, And my guitarist went to the microphone and went, "Ladies and gentlemen," or "Demolition Man." And that was it. Then people just started calling me the Demolition Man. Myself and Venom, the boys in Venom, we were all from the same town. There was one studio there, Impulse Studios, which became Nick Records. And so Conrad, Cronos, worked at the studio. And I went in there with a punk band to do a demo, or talk about doing a demo. And he was the boy working as a cable tape op. He showed us around the whole place. And he was going out with a mutual friend of my girlfriend. And so I was aware of the band very early on. Mantas's girlfriend lived across the road from my mother's house, so I see him all the time. And his girlfriend's younger brother played guitar. He used to come over to my house and we'd jam. And then he came over one day and said, "Oh, my sister's boyfriend, he's just made a record." And I was like, "What? We don't make records. I mean, Deep Purple make records, but we don't make records." And he said, yeah. I said, like, "Oh my God." He said, "Yeah, as soon as I get a copy, I'll bring it to you." And he bought it, and it was In League with Satan. And there they were, the three guys who I saw all the time. This guy was going out with my friend's girlfriend. This guy lived across the road, and I saw him, or his girlfriend did. And I thought, this is weird. We can make records too. And so it was quite exciting. We all became friends. We went to the same clubs and whatever. I went back to Canada to help my sister. When I came back to the UK, I did a demo, gave it to Neat Records, and they wanted to do an album. So I was then on the same label as the same guys. Raven were friends of mine. I knew guys in Avenger and Blitzkrieg and Satan. And so it was kind of like all our friends together. And then Cronos left after Calm Before the Storm. And Abadon, I just finished a tour. 1988, we actually played Poland then. We played the Spodek Stadium in Katowice, the Spodek, Metal Bowl 88 with Nasty Savage Exuma. And it was a very successful tour. I got back to the UK and Cronos had left to go to America. And Abadon said, "Would you want to do a Venom album?" And I was like, "What?" They said, "Well, we want to do a new Venom album. We need someone who understands the band. You do. We need someone who can play bass and sing. You can. We need someone who knows the songs. You do. So would you want to do it?" And I thought, well, yeah, why not? Great songs. I know the band. They're my friends. I love it. So I was like, yeah, great. Okay. Well, Cronos isn't coming back. They're like, "No, Conrad, he's not coming back." So I was like, okay, well, yeah. I'd rather the band existed rather than not exist. So I said, well, we have to have Mantas, but Mantas had said, "Fuck off, no way, I'm not doing it." So I was given the task to make him come back in, which I did. He came back in, and I'd kind of already had predominantly 60% of Primeval written, and so he came in, we finished it off, and that was it. I was in Venom. And I didn't consider that the band had changed. Obviously it had, but that wasn't what I was thinking. I was just thinking, I'm just playing great songs with my friends. And it was when we went out on the first tour, we put the album out, Primeval, and it got great reviews. The response was amazing. Sales were up, the label was happy, the press were happy. And I was like, oh, okay, why is everybody making such a big deal about it? Then we went out on tour and all the shows were sold out, and it was like the response was amazing. And then I realized that my friend's band lost their bass singer, and it was really significant. But I didn't think of it like that, because we were just like friends. Just like, "Oh, would you come and play guitar for us?" "Yeah, I'll come and play." You know, I didn't see the significance in it. But yeah, it was wonderful. We had some wonderful, wonderful time, wonderful years. And then we rolled into 90s, the early 90s, about 92, we did the Wastelands. We didn't do a two of those albums. I think we lost some energy because Britpop was happening. So it was Blur, Oasis, and then of course there was a huge grunge thing. So it was Nirvana and Pearl Jam were coming in. So it was kind of metal, heavy metal, certainly extreme metal was pushed to the side, and the new generation of kids just weren't buying into it, you know, and Metallica famously, Load and Reload, you know, cut their hair and put their makeup on, and it was tried to blend into the scene. You know, you can criticize them for doing that, but at least they adapted, you know. But Slayer didn't. They stayed the course, and they were still Slayer all the way through. So I don't know which one was better, but both took their own tactics. but both came out the other end, you know. And I think from the 90s, from that, I just thought, you know, maybe it's not time for Venom anymore, and we've done enough, so maybe we shouldn't destroy it. And you can't adapt Venom. It was a ball of energy. It wasn't something you could go, oh, well, let's try and play more popular songs or try and be glam or grunge or something. You couldn't do that because there wasn't that ability in the band to do that. So I think that for me, it was like time to close it out. And then fortunately Pantera and of course the black metal revolution in Norway and Scandinavia, as a whole really. But yeah, those two things, them in America and that in the Scandinavians, boom, metal just came back with a vengeance. And of course, and then that rise of death metal from Florida, you know, and all of a sudden you had obituaries coming through and being king of the hill and wow, massive explosion. So yeah, by the end of the 90s, everything was happening again. And that was wonderful to see, yeah.
And everybody was listening to the Venom.
Yeah. And that was it. You know, I think because it was not necessarily about the musical influence, you know, because you can't listen to Abadon and think, you know, Dave Lombardo didn't listen to Abadon and go, oh, he's a great drummer, I'll learn to play like that. You know, he didn't. But there was an attitude there, you know, and it was the attitude. You know, we were very Geordie, so they would take the piss and they'd laugh, and the more you didn't want them to do something, the more they would do it. You know, the uglier it was, the better it was. The more, anti-religion it was, the better it was. So it was all trying to make people think and poking, you know, sticks at them. And I think that was the key to it. Those bands, you know, the Tons, you know, Sodom, you know, Hellhammer, you know, Bathory, Quorthorn, Pete Steele, you know, all of it, Exoduses, you know, all of it was happening. It was somewhere, but there was no internet, but there was no labels, and there was nowhere to go. But the kids were still doing it. But what happened with Venom is that they got an opportunity to make a record very quickly. They didn't have any experience. It kind of was all just like, a mishmash of excitement, and it went out. But what it showed everybody was like, oh, you don't have to be Deep Purple, you don't have to be Led Zeppelin, and you don't have to be signed to Sony. You could actually do it as independent. And we could all do that. And what happened? You had John Sazula and Brian Slagle, both with record stores this side and that side of America. Both ended up doing a compilation album. One's got Slayer and Metallica, one's got Metallica on and Anthrax, and boom, you've got two record labels. You've got Metal Blade and Megaforce. And the whole industry explodes. And in England, you had London Records started to take on Onslaught. You had Music for Nations created, and they took a Metallica record, and then they started bringing bands, Reanimator and Acid Rain, and all of a sudden there was a whole industry going. And Germany, boom, that went up. SPV, you know, Steamhammer, and then next thing you know, you got Sodom, and you got Destruction, and it was like, what the fuck? It was like everybody was there, but nobody knew what to do. Venom got an opportunity. Neat Records went, okay, we'll put an album out. The door opened and everybody went, and everybody ran through it at the same time. And it was amazing. It's like I used to trade tapes, and every week I'd get another batch of tapes and send another batch out and be endlessly listening to bands from everywhere, from all over the planet. And it was like so exciting, you know. It was like Spotify except in cassette form, but you had to actually take all the cassettes out and listen. So you listened to everything because, you know, you were involved practically. So you weren't skipping stuff. You were like, I don't want to listen to the whole thing until I've heard everything. And that was the beauty of it, you know. But that's how we discovered each other, how we discovered those bands, you know. So I think that was it. It wasn't so much the songs themselves or the music, although I loved them, and I think they were revolutionary in some ways. as classics, but I think it was more the attitude and what happened that made everybody else go, fuck, they were the first ones that showed us that we could do that too. And so everybody started putting on the Venom shirts and everybody was wearing them, you know? And it's a bit like the Misfits flag. You know, if you see someone wearing a Welcome to Hell on a black metal shirt, it doesn't necessarily mean that they listen to Venom, but they certainly are flying a flag to go, this represents who I am, who extreme music is, and why I'm here. You know, it became our flag to stand under and go, that's who we are, not the corporate, you know, commercial stuff. We're this, you know, so yeah, wonderful.
For me, I can say that you are, and you were, the guys with punk attitude from the from the beginning to the core. And the difference is that you were anti-religious, not anti-system.
But then for us, the religion was the system, because we're from the north of England, and you know, I'm a Roman Catholic, and they're Roman Catholics, you know, and so we were raised as Roman Catholics. So it was all nuns and monks and priests and going to church and, you know, not speaking until you were spoken to, and getting the cane and getting hit with a leather strap and being quiet and sitting, washing your hands before you eat, washing your face before you leave the house, you know, don't get yourself too dirty. So a lot of restrictions. And I think, you know, at some point we thought, if we say God's a wanker, he sucks cocks, they'd all go, what the fuck? You can't say that. And of course, we go, well, he does. And then so does his mum. And it was like, fuck. So it was like cussing out, like in rap, you know, like your mama, you know, that cussing out thing. So it was kind of like that. It was like, well, if we say that and they go, what did you just say? It's like, oh, there's a reaction. So if we say something more and then we keep saying it, and then of course, that's what all the kids, you know, all the kids who were under that duress in Scandinavia with the Christianity coming through and raping their pagan, you know, Thor and Odin and all of those great stories, you know, they became anti that. So religion was the state. It was the state to us. And so we were anti that control, anti that oppressive way of being. So, you know, and the more salacious it was, then the more your parents hated it, the more we thought it was cool, you know. So that was kind of the attitude, yeah.
The long story short, the Cronos left Venom and then he came back.
Yes.
Can you tell us in few words this story behind his leaving and coming back?
Yeah, well, I think when they did Calm Before the Storm, Mantas had left. They did Possessed, Mantas left. They did Calm Before the Storm and they got two guitarists in. But the drums on that were programmed. Abadon didn't play it because it was a bit more complicated. But the album was received really badly. It didn't sell very well. People didn't seem to like it. And so, but Conrad saw that he could do really well with two guitarists. So he decided to get rid of Abadon and to get another drummer in. But he didn't want to go under the Venom flag, so he moved to America. And he had a 6-month visa, and so he started to do his solo stuff. And he did okay with it. I then stepped in to fill in the gap. In '92, I left because I just didn't think metal was surviving, and I thought, you know, there's no point killing Venom just because we're there, and maybe metal won't come back. So it's like, okay, maybe it's time to just put it on pause. However, Cronos returned back from America. Andre Verhoeven from Holland was doing Dynamo Festival, and they contacted him, and he had an offer to go with the original 3 guys, because Tony's gone. If the original 3 of you want to get back together for a show, let's do a show. So they agreed to do that, and you had the Reformation. So they did the reunion, and from that they did Cast in Stone. They got signed to SPV, Same Hammer. They did Cast in Stone, and then they sacked Abadon. Then did Resurrection, then Mantas left, then, yeah, it's like, okay.
Have you ever been talking with him or asking how did he like the albums with you or the shows? Have you seen the Venom live with you on stage?
I think Conrad is on record as saying he thinks the albums, and not if he thinks the albums suck, I don't think he likes them because he's not on them. But I think his main thing is that to him, it shouldn't be Venom because he knew me from Atomcraft. So he's going, when I hear Tony playing and singing, it's Atomcraft to me, not Venom.
Okay.
And of course I can get that because we have that association. And it doesn't matter how many times I would play those songs, those classic songs, when I hear Conrad doing them, it sounds right to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if a kid wants me to go, please play Witching Hour, of course I'll play it because you want to hear it, and maybe this is the only way you're going to hear it. So yes, I'll fucking play it because I've been playing it for 40 years. But that's fine, and he might lose his mind and love it. But when I hear Conrad doing it, to me, that's my Witching Hour that I heard. So it's like, that feels right to me. So, but I'm here to play music and to give the fans, something. So I'm going to play my songs, and if they want a classic song, then that's fine. But I think that, I think he hasn't really listened to the albums so much. He wouldn't confess to that, of course. And he has watched the shows, but he won't discuss the shows because, again, he sees it as me. Therefore, it should be him, and it isn't. So it's not his Venom, of course it's not. It's another Venom, but I'm sure Bruce Dickinson went back to Iron Maiden. Not that, Blaze did a bad job, I guess, but he just thought, but that's me. I should be there. Because, so he went back, and so I can kind of guess that's what happens. Sometimes in a band you have a musician, and that musician can play in any band. You can have a Joe Satriani, you can have an Al Pitrelli, or a fucking, Steve Vai, a Billy Sheehan. You can have a guy who's just great, a Gary Holt. He could be in any band and play in any band, and he's just a great guitarist and he's a performer. That's a musician. Mm-hmm. But you have some people who only exist in that band. You take them out of that band and they're just an average somebody else. And it's like, right, but you put them in that band and there's something going on there.
Magic.
And there's a magic, yeah. And, and I think they discovered that independently of each other, no magic. Together, magic. So it's like, okay, so recognizing that, it means that, we had magic together, but it was a different kind of magic. But it was still magic, but just in a different way. So, that's what happens. But, so I think they need, Conrad needed Venom. So when he wasn't in Venom, he didn't want to accept it, which is why he ended up going back and having Venom again. And the other two came back for the same reason. And they'll come back again to it, because if they don't, who are they? They're just some history, But they want to do it. They want to feel alive. And you feel alive when you're in Venom. Regardless whether people love you or hate you, you definitely feel alive. So,
are you in touch with him now, or just past?
No, not really. He's quite reclusive now. He keeps himself to himself. He does a few shows a year. I don't know how healthy he is, because we're all aging, we never did a festival at the same time. I mean, I think the idea of having an original lineup do anything, is a kind of fantasy that people would have, and it's never going to be like 1984, even though you want it to be. It isn't. But I would love to do, me and Conrad to do a show, because nobody would imagine that. We're both on stage at the same time playing and singing together. I think that would blow people's minds to have that. So yeah, but he has his own hang-ups, and he's maybe a bit paranoid and stuff, and doesn't do so many shows, But like I say to fans, it doesn't matter. You can still see him, And okay, you might not be able to see us all at the same time, but you can see us all. We're still out there. We're still alive. So don't miss the opportunity, because then it's too late. There's plenty of people say to me, I never got to see Motorhead. So, but they were touring every year. But I always say, I'm not that. But then when he's gone, I thought, shit, I should have went. It's like, well, of course, that's the whole point. So go to everything. And then when it's not there, even if you don't like it, you might like it, but give yourself the opportunity, because soon it won't be there. Then you won't be able to. And, lick the ice cream before it melts, is what I say.
Yeah. After you leave the Venom, you take a break, and then after many years you came back with Empire of Evil.
Yes.
Have you been playing in this gap somewhere?
Well, yeah, I mean, I basically was working in theatre, and then I did some acting. I became an actor.
Yeah?
And I did a couple of movies, some TV, some presenting, and then I was studying to be an automation engineer.
Oh.
So then I got a job as an automation engineer, moving sets and stuff. So that's what I started doing. And then I got a call from Mantas, who was doing a solo album, another one, in the early 2000s, and asked me to play bass on it. So I went and played bass on the album, and then we did a couple of shows, and then he got management, so I left and went back to work, and then we had another break, and then he played a show for a charity, and he had Abdon, who's Conrad's brother, playing drums for him, and they did, as a closing song, they did black metal, and Mantas sung it. And online, people were going, oh my God, fucking hell, you guys together, you should get the Demolition Man in and do something. So they called me and said, would you want to? And I was like, well, I think I'm a bit too old. You know, I don't think so. But he was convincing, and I said, okay, let's do it then. So we created Empire of Evil, which is, you know, everybody said, what a shit name. It's like, well, they wanted to be called Prime Evil, but I was like, oh, it's a bit tacky. And there was a band in America called Prime Evil, and I was like, well, I don't know. They got really angry about it, the band in America. And so I said, I think it's unfair, so let's change the name. So I was looking at Empire of Evil, Prime Evil, and I moved the letters around and came up with Empire of Evil. So it's an anagram of Prime Evil. So I thought that was really clever. And then everybody said it's shit. I was like, oh, okay, well, we've done it now. So that's what we did. And then we got to early 2000s, maybe 14, 15, and Oliver Weishammer came to see me play a show as Atomcraft. We played the Future Warriors album, and he suggested, I got Mantas on to play a couple of the songs that he liked, so he joined me on stage. And then Oliver Weishammer, who does Keep It True in Germany, contacted me, said, I saw the concert, it was brilliant, I loved it, it was great, I saw you got Mantas up, did you know Abadam was in the audience? And I was like, no. He said, yeah, and I was thinking, what if you came in, if I booked you to play Keep It True as Empire of Evil, and Abadon was there, would you play some Venom songs? And I was like, oh, they will hate each other. Nobody's going to want to do that. And he said, yeah, but you could make it happen. And I said, oh, I don't think I could, Oliver. And he said, you could. So I was like, okay. So I spoke to Abadon, yes. I spoke to Mantas, yes. At first he said no, then he said yes. And so we went and did Keep It True. We played as Empire of Evil. We switched the set around. Abadon turned up. We went on and played 5 Venom songs. Now, the idea was to play those 5 and go home. And that was it. Just for those fans, 2,000 fans. But everybody went online and everybody was going to me, oh my God. And within 2 months, we were in China, and then Japan, and then Australia, and then New Zealand, and then we went to South America, and then we did Europe, and it was non-stop for 18 months. Bang, 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 shows. People just loved it. And yeah, it was kind of overnight. And I had to come up with a name. So, you know, I was thinking, you know, what do we use? Mantas and Abadon. Abadon said, I want to use the original Venom logo. I was going, well, you know, we can't do that, can we? Because then Venom. So we can't be another Venom. It's like, no. So it's like, that's the whole idea of changing the name in Empire of Evil. And Mantas, we're not calling ourselves Empire of Evil with him in. So I was like, okay, well then, I don't know. So I spoke to my agent and he said, well, what about using the name Venom somehow? So I was like, well, we're incorporating all of our music. And I was like, oh, we could be Venom Incorporated. Like, meaning we can play all of our music. The solo stuff, any Venom stuff, our stuff, Empire stuff, Mantas stuff, anything. Amcraft stuff if we wanted to, if we incorporate all of our music. So that was the idea. The t-shirts turned up to the venue and they said Venom Inc. I said, that's supposed to say incorporated. They went, yeah, but it's a long word, so I just abbreviated. Ink means incorporated. I said, I know what it means, but that looks like Damage Inc. I said, we're not a business, we're a band. And they were like, well, so we put them out and everybody just called us Venom Inc. I was like, fuck it, just go with it, you know. And kind of that's how we became Venom Inc. You know, and then Abadon left. He was having a baby. He wasn't, his wife was. And he walked away. I don't know. I didn't want to get into it. He just decided to leave, and then never came back. And then Mantas just recently, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he'd had a heart attack about 4 or 5 years ago and died. They brought him back to life, and about 11 weeks later, he was out touring again, but then he took a second heart attack. And then he was like, my mind's fucked, and I don't want to travel. So he just stopped. He didn't want to play any more live shows. So I was like, oh shit, well, what do I do? You know, I still got an album to do with Nuclear Blast. I still got shows coming up that I could do, offers. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just carry on. And I got Curran Murphy, who was with Annihilator and Nevermore. And his band had opened for me on a tour. And I thought, that's the guy. So I approached him, and that's who's now playing guitar. And the idea was originally that Mantas would get better and return. But he decided not to, so...
Because lately I saw, I mean, many people saw his that he is angry about that he's not in bed. Have you been talking about this something later or after his statement?
Not after the statement, no. I was like, okay, well, I don't get, you know, he was saying that there was no communication. But I have all the communication. You know, even my drummer was talking to him and going, why could you just not? And he was the one telling me, I'll talk to you next week, I'll talk to you next week. I sent him a whole list of Americans, said these American dates. I know you said you didn't want to tour, but just let me know. You don't have to do all of them. You could come and do some of them. You come and play New York and then go home. You don't have, but he didn't want to travel, so he wouldn't respond. Kept putting me off, saying, I'll talk to you next week, I'll talk to you next week. And then all of a sudden, he was releasing videos and music and, hang on, well, I thought I was waiting for you to, and I'm in the press telling everybody I'm waiting for him to come back, and all the time he's recording new music, and then he blames me. It's like, well, you left, you just left, you recorded new music, you just done your videos, and now you're blaming me for what? He very knew that I was taking, Curran was covering for him. And Curran Murphy, every time anybody said to him, what's it like being in the band? I'm only here until Mantas gets better and comes back. Well, that's all I'm here for. You know, he never committed to being in the band. I never said it in the press. And, you know, they kind of were pointing at me as if like, oh, I'm doing damage management. It's like, what damage management? You were sick. You said you don't want to tour. I'm hoping you want to, so I'm just waiting for you to come back. And he never came back. So, you know, for me to see the third time he did that to me, made statements in the press about what he was going to do, I get sent a screenshot. So I was when people were going, oh my God, I can't believe what he just said. And I said, neither can I. And they're going, well, did you talk? I said, no, I'm still waiting for him to talk. So I was just as shocked as everybody else. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's not dead. And he's my brother. And I love him regardless of what he says about me or anything else. You know, I couldn't love him for 4 years and then not like him in a week. So he's still my brother. When he died, I was the first one there. I looked after him and his wife, and I was driving her to the hospital twice a day. And, you know, I bought him coffee machines and I was supporting them. And as soon as he could get out to earn money, I got out there to earn the money so they could be okay. You know, so to then be like I didn't give a shit, it's like, what? So messaging you, you know, and he was like, well, he was always working. It's like, well, yeah, because I have to earn money because I live in London and I have to pay my rent. So it's like the band doesn't pay me enough. I have to have a job, and I have a very demanding job. And so I do my job. So it wasn't that I didn't care, and it wasn't that I was not communicating. He was not communicating, but blames me, of course. And it's like, okay, well, he can blame me. But at the end of the day, I want him to not be dead, and I want him to be at peace and not have another heart attack. And if this is how he is going to survive, then great. That's good. It's better than not being here.
You think it's possible to one day you will sit
no,
again and talk?
Not now. Not now. He said too many bad things about me that are untrue, and it's not fair. And I just think, hang on, I'm the same person that I was back then. The same person that Venom tried to destroy my band. The same person that they stole all my money. The same person that they embezzled and they didn't give me my publishing. And I didn't get any money from advances. And I didn't get paid for any tours. And I never got paid for any albums. And they took my publishing money off my records, including Cronos, and then laughed about it in public. It's like, well, we get his money. Now I go out and play shows. If I play 10 Venom songs in a tour on a show, I don't get the money, they get the money. It's their royalties.
Right.
So I'm still making that money for them, but I don't care about that. You know, I brought Abadam back after everything he did because I didn't care. You know, Mantas was like, don't bring him back after everything he did. And I was like, but it's not important to me. Money's not important to me. I mean, if I can eat and sleep and I have a house and I have a car that works and I have food and clothes and everybody's okay, that's all right. I don't need more than that. But what I do want to do is play the music and meet people. That's why I'm doing this. So I don't care. And I thought in the back of my mind, he'd changed. He'd grown up and he's in his 60s. He's not going to be the same, but I was wrong. And Mantas said to me, I told you he wouldn't change. And I was like, okay. And so they wanted him not to be in the band anymore. And I fought for several months to keep him in the band. And eventually he walked away and then blamed me. I was like, okay, right. So, you know, they all blame me for their own demise. And it's like, well, I'm just doing what we set out to do, what we agreed to do. And I haven't changed my mantra. And I'm not going to change it. This is what we decided to do, and I wanted you to be part of it, not to be part of it.
So I can say that it's not possible that you, Abadam and Mantas will play again?
No, never, no. And I don't think, well, that's up to Cronos, but that's never going to happen either, because they did the same thing to him. Said so many bad things about him, and, you know, did so many bad things towards him. And now because they haven't got Venom, they want to, let's forget about all that. Well, he doesn't need to, does he? He's still Venom. He still plays his shows, he's still making albums, he's signed to Spine Farm. He doesn't need them, he has a band. So, you know, I don't know, but I can't see that happening. But certainly for myself, no. I'm much happier not being oppressed by them, not being, I don't have to deal with any of the bad politics or any of the bullshit. I don't have to. I can just be free and just play music, and that's all I want to do, you know.
So, you are still playing. When we can expect a new album of Venom Inc?
We're working on the stuff now. When we did There's Only Black, which was the last album, which I did with Mantas, we overwrote the album like double length, so we had 24 songs. We picked 12 for the album, so I still had a bunch of songs left over, and then I've been writing on top of that. So I've spent the last 2 years. Putting the compositions together. Could you close the door? I spent the last 2 years putting the compositions together, so we have 2 live albums coming out, and then we have the new album, which should be out around about March next year. So we're in negotiations at the minute. I've got a couple of big announcements coming, so I'm just trying to keep everything balanced at the minute. So yeah, but it sounds amazing, you know, to have, because both Mark Jackson and Curran, they're excited. You know, they're not 60. They haven't got all that history behind them. They don't have the same hang-ups that we all had. They're just really excited and are dying to do it, which makes it really exciting for myself. So yeah, it's a good time to be in the band for me, yeah.
I must say the cover art for the album Ave is really great.
Thank you.
I mean, when you see this devil,
yeah,
he's very terrifying.
Yeah.
It's not like the modern other bands driving the devil or Satan. This is very something mysterious and dark. Do you think that the next cover art will be in the same vein?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, one of the live albums, I'm putting together at the minute the artwork, and it's the cover of Ave, but in real life.
Oh.
So I'm getting the pieces put together, because on the cover you have the sheep, and one of the sheep is a wolf inside. You can see it's torn, so it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's Adam and Eve embraced under the tree with the apple. There's the snakes, there's the panpipes, there's the Temple of David behind him, and it's ominous. It's Lucifer walking the earth. But is he coming to get you, or is he leading you away? And, you know, it's dark and it's ominous. Does that mean the storm's coming, or has it already happened? And so there's lots of symbolism in there. And the piece of artwork was done, the artist who did it, he does artwork and he raises the money for a charity of war-torn children, and so all the money goes to the kids. So he wouldn't take payment for the artwork. I sent him my ideas and he painted that and gave it to me, so I gave the money to the charity orphanage. So it was, for me, that was kind of symbolic of Lucifer, the whole idea of Lucifer being given the task to look after man on earth. You know, so is he evil? Is he not? Is he protecting us? Is he guiding us? Is he giving us the knowledge we seek? Is his influence bad or is it good? We say it's bad, but is it bad? Because religions cause more wars than the Satanism. So maybe he's being painted as the bad one, but maybe knowledge is the good thing. You know, because in order for a country to control the populace, they don't want you to have knowledge. The less knowledge you have, the easier you are to control.
True.
So maybe that is why they're anti-underground, they're anti-extreme music, because it's made up of individuals who think for themselves. We're made up of individuals who ask why. When they tell us we have to do something, we go, why? Where our parents may go, oh, let's just do it, because they told us we should. Well, we're going, yeah, but why do we have to do it? And they don't want you to ask why. So, you know, we must be bad. We all do drugs and all kinds of ugly stuff. But it's not true. And we're not underground. You know, you could walk down Manila, you could be in Texas, someone walks across the other side of the road with a Slayer shirt in, he's not hiding himself, and already you know you guys are joined by the music. So, you know, we don't hide ourselves, that's why we're not underground, we're mainstream. We're just our mainstream, not their mainstream.
True. If we are talking about the devil image, when you look into the art or music or videos, movies, which presentation of him is by you the most evil or most mystical?
Well, I think when you're looking at it, I like it when it looks more rich. You know, there's a couple of movies, one with Al Pacino and the series Lucifer. If you look at the series Lucifer, the same thing. He's a very good-looking, smart guy. Now, if I want to influence you, or I want to, you know, get inside your head, if I look like a devil with a pointy tail and I'm all gooey and I smell like shit and I'm all with horns and stuff, you're going to fucking freak out. You're going to freak out. I'm going to scare the shit out of you and I'll start talking evil to you and getting inside. You know, it's going to push you away. But if I'm like your best friend, I'm the guy, you can fucking count on me. I'll be there for you. And I'm going to give you advice and I'm going to treat you to a, you know, all of a sudden you start to fall in love with this person because you're going, this is like a great guy. But if I was the devil and I wanted to influence you, that's who I'd be, not that. So that's why when you see a Macron or not so much a Donald Trump, but you know, you see those suave, good-looking foreign leaders, it always makes me a bit more nervous. When I see an ugly one, I think, oh, that's all right. He's probably okay. He's just a bit batty. But when I see a really good-looking one, I'm like, oh, that's the one makes me more nervous because he looks like he's a great talker and he looks fantastic and his nails are all clean and he's all smells of, you know, Javon or whatever the fucking, you know, it's like, that's the dangerous. So that's the thing that excites me more. You know, not the nails and the coffins and the Jesus and all the crucifixes and the blood everywhere. It's like, okay, yeah, we all know upside down cross what that means. But when you see something that, like the cover of Harvey, it looks passive. He's not screaming, he's not jumping out at you, he's just walking along playing his pipe. But there's like there's some kind of ominous thing about that. It's like being in Nebraska and you're driving and in the distance the sky goes black. You think, fuck, that is black, and there's nothing happening yet. But you know it's going to happen, but you don't know how bad it's going to be when it happens. That's more scary. That's more scary.
For me, the image, which is for me the more frightful, was in the TV series Robin Hood, Sword of Avalon.
Yeah, the Sword of Avalon, yeah.
And that was
exactly.
image of devil.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that thing, it's like, Jesus walking the desert, the story of Jesus in the desert, and Satan trying to convince him to do, you know. I mean, that's just something in his head. going, do it. But did he present himself as this devil, like in that image we think, or was he just a nice guy walking along with him? You know, and that's what you would be. You'd be his friend. You'd be his confidant, and you'd be, you know, much more personable. And that's more nerve-wracking, because by the time you figure out, oh fuck, this is him, it's too late. He's already got your soul. Is that kind of thing? Yeah, I like that. It's the story of Robert Johnson at the Crossroads, isn't it? The guy pulls up in a limousine, in a fucking limousine. But the devil comes in a limousine. He doesn't just pop out of the goozing, glory ground with a fucking pitchfork. Now he turns up in a limousine and goes, hey, bud, gets him to sign a contract. A contract. Yeah, devil doesn't need a fucking contract, but just sign the contract. So it smacks of, like, you know, richness, you know, and like, oh, glory of, you know, committing to this thing. So yeah, I think that's more nerve-wracking, yeah.
All right, on tour there are many things happening.
Yeah.
So, what's the most absurd or hilarious thing that ever happened to you on tour?
Oh my God, being on tour, watching Spinal Tap and realizing that every band on the planet thinks that movie's about them, because that's exactly what it's like. You know, turning up in a hotel, you know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you get to the room and you're so tired and you pull back the bed and it's crawling with bugs and spiders, and you're like, what the fuck? And they go, oh, so sorry, we'll put you in another room. And you get into another room and the toilet door's hanging off, or there's no toilet, and you go, there's no toilet, and then they put you, and it's all 4 o'clock in the morning. So stuff like that, you know, crashing a vehicle on a highway at 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of Georgia and almost dying, you know, without insurance, and then going, fuck. And, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, so many things. I was once on tour and the guitarist decided to sit with the driver, and he was only young, and he started drinking rum. And I said, you shouldn't drink so much rum. You know, you're drunk, you know, you'll be sick. He's like, ah, fuck off, I want to drink rum. And like, okay. And so I left him, went to bed. The next morning I get off my tour bus, and he's outside with a bucket of water. I said, what are you doing? He said, I had to clean this. And from the window, he'd obviously been sick. The whole bus was this purple colour of rum. And I was like, yeah, the driver gone, right, in the morning, clean my fucking bus. So I was going, so you're going to drink rum again tonight? He went, I don't think so. So yeah, lots of really funny stuff. In the 80s, trying to escape the police I put my pants down to flash a car was tooting its horn. We were very drunk on our day off, and we were in Frankfurt, and we were going back to the bus, and we were chatting, and I was in the middle of the road, and a car blasted its horn, so I took my pants down with my arse like that, and then I turned around and went like that with my cock, and it was the two cops, and I was like, fuck! So they got out of the car, so I ran across the road with my pants, jumped over a fence, and rode down the bank to the river, and nearly fell in the river. So while the cops were trying to get down, I was pulling my pants up trying to run to the bus, and then I went on and I hid under my bunk, and I was like, I'm not on the bus if the police come. They didn't come, but yeah, stuff like that happens all the time. Yeah.
Have you been playing a show when you were sick, ill, or feeling so badly?
Yes. Yeah, lots of times.
And what gives you strength then?
The fans and the music. You know, my biggest one was this hand. We played in Russia, and we had about, I think, 12 shows, and it was show 3. Show 3. We played in Nuclear Bunker, and it was the middle of winter, and there was a door, and then concrete steps all the way down to this bunker, and everybody went in, and I thought, I'm going to get the guitars out. So I got the guitars out, and as I opened the door like this, and I stood on the step, I slipped on the ice. And I went all the way down the concrete steps, but I thought, fuck, so I held onto the guitars, smashing my hand like that. And when I got to the bottom, I let go, and I broke the two fingers. And my hand went this big. I was like, fuck, ah! And I sort of went into the venue with my hand broken, and I played the whole show that night, and the rest of the shows, I played another 9 shows after that with my hand broken, with my fingers so big. People going, how can you play? And I'm like, well, I know. Like during the day, I was like, oh, fucking hell, it was killing me. But every time we got to the show, I just played the show. So I guess that is the power of the music, you know? And I think, right, I'm the Demolition Man tonight. I'm not Tony. Tony, I broke my hand and it really hurts. But the Demolition Man, he hasn't broken his hand. So you perform as a character. It's what you do in acting. You know, when you're acting as another character, I'm scared, I'm a bit nervous, because I'm nervous. But the character, he isn't. So if I'm the character, then I'm not nervous. So I go on as a character. And that's why people say, do you get nervous going on stage? I said, I might, but I don't know, because I'm never there. The Demolition Man doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't get nervous.
So you feel that you change into someone else?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because in order to be that, you have to be someone else. Because you're going on and singing those songs. And maybe the other guys fucking do it like it's a list of greatest hits. But I can't do that. Because they don't inspire me like that. They inspire me because they mean something. And I can see in the face of kids and fans that they mean something to them. You know, we did a show recently on this tour that we just did with Carisian and Hate and Ater. And halfway through the show, the guitarist Curran comes to me and says, shall we play Don't Burn the Witch? I'm like, what? No. And he's like, oh, right, okay. I said, why did you ask? It's not in the set. And he said, oh, there's a kid in the front row, keeps holding his phone up. So I said, what? So I looked, and this kid's holding his phone up, and he's got Spotify on the phone, and the track is Don't Burn the Witch. So I go, okay, let's play it then. So we did, and the kid lost his mind, couldn't put his phone away, he lost his mind. And that's the beauty of the music. You know, you're playing it because it means something to them. So when you play it, it has to mean something to you. And so that's why I have to be him. And he doesn't have the rules that I have. So he doesn't care. He just wants to be liberated by playing the music. And the difficulty is, if you create the character, you have to be able to turn it off. So when I finish a show, I need at least 30 minutes to become myself again. So sometimes people get me in that gap where I haven't quite become myself again. I'm still him. And then they piss me off and I react as him, not as me. So for me, it's like, I don't mind, that's fine. But he is like, what the fuck are you doing? So he doesn't like that. So, you know, I have to keep that balance. Mentally, it helps me to deal and cope with things because I never get stressed or worried or scared because I know I've always got him if I need to. He's always there and I can go, give me a hand here, and he comes out and then I don't have to worry about it. So it's good for my mind, keeps a balance for me.
You said before that you have acting experience.
Yeah.
Does it help you with this transformation or being on stage someone else?
Funnily enough, I think it's the reverse. I think that I took that to the acting because I knew there was two me's. There was the really angry me who doesn't give a shit what you think, and then there's the me who does care and gets hurt like anybody else and worries about things. And so I always had that. So when I was then acting, I knew I could be the other guy. So if I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I could do that, it sounds like a big thing for me, I could ask him and he'd go, I don't give a shit, let's do it. And it's like, okay, because he's not scared. And so I relied on him to be, so I go, you be that. I'll be this one, you be that one. And so kind of, it sounds like I'm absolutely insane, and maybe I am, but those are the real conversations I have with myself. You know, it gives me the courage. You know, I jumped out of an airplane at 5,000 feet. I then did 10,000 feet. I then did 15,000 feet. But I was scared to even go in the plane. So what did I do? I said, would you jump out of this plane for me? I'll be with you. And he was like, I don't care, yeah. So he jumped out. The second time we jumped out together. The third time I jumped out. You know, the higher I got, the easier it got. But I needed him to help me get out the first time. So, and we do that. We all have that inside us. You know, we all have that inside us. It's our yin to our yang. It's our evil to our good. It's our black to our white. But if you embrace it and allow it to be part of you, you can utilize it as an energy and you can use it. And he doesn't do anything bad because he can let go on stage. He can exercise himself on stage. So when he screams, you can scream and get your whole week. You know, your boss, your wife or your boyfriend or your fucking everything that went shit for the week, you can just scream away, and he's there with you screaming. So that's what I love about it.
You mentioned that you played in some movies or in TV. Is it possible to watch somewhere?
Yeah, I did Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone and Armand Asante. I was in that. I did Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World with Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany, who went on to play Vision in the Avengers. I did a thing called Dirty War for HBO. I did Sherlock Holmes for Fox. Fox, 20th Century Fox, radio play, two full series episodes where I played Dr. Watson, a voice thing, and yeah, I did lots of stuff for the BBC, historical stuff, and then I was working for a company called Classic Rock Reviews, and I ended up presenting. And we do like classic albums, like or classic shows. So we did Slade Alive and Get Your Yayas Out and Deep Purple and Pink Floyd and Rush and The Cure and Green Day, the Sex Pistols. So we did a whole series for about a year. I did all of those. So yeah, tons of stuff. And it's, you know, if you go into the film search things, I'm in there. The work I've done, a couple of directing things, a couple of writing things and stuff. So, you know, I just like to work, and I'm a workaholic. And if an idea comes or an opportunity comes, I just seize it. And you know, I tell students, just say yes, challenge yourself, because who knows, you might be the best writer. You might write the best novel, the next Harry Potter, and you don't know if you can or not. Well, try it, see what happens. If it isn't, well, who cares? At least you tried. But if it is, imagine that. You're now an author. So I said, just challenge yourself. You don't know what you're capable of until you try it. So try it.
Do you still play?
Yeah. I mean, because of the band and the last 10 years, because we're celebrating 10 years of VENOM Incorporated, it's all been about the music. It's all been about the band. So, you know, but I do get offers from time to time. I've just done some narration for a Norwegian or a Finnish album that's coming out. So it's a whole series of narration for it. I did a Clockwork Orange narration for Necrodeath when they did their last album, the Italian death metal band, and they asked me could I do that. It was based on Clockwork Orange, but I had to play 4 characters, so I was like doing scenes with myself, but different accents and different character things. So, you know, I do lots of challenging stuff, but fun stuff to do, so yeah.
Before we end, I would like to ask you about the modern scene. It's totally different than scene when you were back in 80s. How do you perceive these differences? Is better, just different, or what is your opinion?
Yeah, I think for me it's better, and I tell you why. Because there's more everywhere, and I hate the genres. I know Tom Warrior is not into genres, and Cawthorne hated genres. Pete Steele, all the old schoolers hated the genres because it means if I listen to black metal, I can't listen to death metal. If I listen to death metal, I shouldn't be listening to hardcore. If you're hardcore, you shouldn't be listening to heavy metal. It's like, okay, but what if I love that hardcore band and I love that black metal band and I really like these 2 death metal bands? Does that mean I can't listen to them legitimately? Of course I can. It's all just music. And some things I like and some things I don't like. So I listen to the stuff I do like. And I don't care what it's supposed to be classified as. In the old days, we didn't have the classification, but we also didn't have the internet. We talked about tape trading, and that's how we heard our music, and fanzines and magazines. And, you know, Russia, the USSR, had closed off most of the countries in this side of Europe. So how were they getting music? You know, they had to get it however they got it. So they got it from cassettes, and that's how they listened to stuff. So what I love now is that I can hear about a band today, and tomorrow I've listened to all their stuff, seen their videos, gone to all their pages, and even I can contact them. I go, I love what you're doing, and then like, you know, I can follow them, you know, so I can get updates on them. That's what I love about the internet. I can connect with Japan, with, you know, Greenland, with Iceland, with fucking Manila, with you know, the Seychelles. Bands are everywhere. The music's everywhere, and I can find them all. I couldn't do that in the old days. Sure. But
Or you can send a letter, I didn't know that you will get asked.
And yes, yeah, exactly. You know, you send it off to an address from a magazine and hope you're going to hear back. And so, you know, there's an immediacy, which is great. Of course, there's a problem because now there's too much, so you can't listen to everything. You know, but you can put a Spotify playlist together. You can get notifications of new releases. But there's so much out there and so much great stuff. But I think that's one of the things that I find exciting. I can't listen to everything, but every day is another discovery of new music I never knew existed. But now I do. And then tomorrow's another day. I can do the same thing again. And I can keep doing it and keep finding it. And they're from different places in the world. And some richness. And in different genres, in different styles. And I hear the most amazing drummers. And this kid's 12. This girl's 8. This young guitarist is 6 years old. And I'm seeing all of this amazing stuff going, oh my God, it's endless. It's endless. And I think the internet, that has helped that. You know, because there's a bass player, a young girl, and her dad was in a band, and she fucking wheels on the bass. And she plays bass from every bass player, every famous bass player she does. She was doing Billy Sheehan yesterday. I'm like, what, this kid, how? But she works hard and learns all the stuff and plays it. But the internet helps that happen. If she didn't have the internet, I wouldn't know she existed.
Plus, now it's easier to learn playing because you have so many tutorials.
Playthroughs, yeah, tutorials. You can use YouTube, utilize it, tablature, everything's at your fingertips. And so you can watch the guy who wrote it play it for you. I mean, it's amazing. So the fact that I could find out about her and she could be that proficient because she also used the internet to learn is, I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing. And so I embrace it. I think it's wonderful.
But except listening from the streaming, do you still buy albums?
Well, I get given albums a lot. So I'm always getting given CDs, particularly when I'm on the road. But buying them is very difficult. But I have bought albums that I love. I think, I bought Kerry King's and the Sabbath 13 I bought. Those were kind of the last things. The last Destruction album I bought, Accept. So I buy them when I think like, I want to have that as a CD, I'll buy it. Vinyl-wise, I don't really buy the vinyl because there's no outlets and I have to get it from the record companies. But I can request, because I'm old now, I've been around, if there's a particular vinyl, I can call the company and go, could I grab one of those? And I'm very fortunate, they might send me one. So at least I could get one, you know. But even when they send me my releases, re-releases or anything, and they always send me some CDs and a vinyl, I'm so excited to get the vinyl. Like to look at it and take it out and just like, oh my God. And there's something about vinyl, it's just, you feel closer to the actual music, you know. It's not Spotify, it's not Apple, streaming, where you're hearing it, but you're not involved in it. Whereas a CD, you're there, there's the CD cover, but then you get the vinyl and you have to take it out, and so you're touching it, and then making sure there's no scratches, and then you're involved in it, so you feel closer to the product, closer to the band, closer to the music.
Some kind of ritual.
Yeah, it's a ritual, yeah. And you don't have a ritual on streaming. You just can put it on and then it's in the background. And you're at the gym, or you're walking down the street, or you're riding your bike and it's just playing. It doesn't mean you're not listening to it, but it becomes like lift music. Whereas when you listen to a vinyl record in particular, a CD, but mainly a vinyl record, you have to be at home, you have to be comfortable. There's a whole process of setting up, and then you're the ritual of doing it, and then putting it away afterwards.
And are there any band release you are waiting for, but from the old bands?
Well, I would probably think right now, I'm quite keen to hear the next Kerry King anything. But Exodus, because they've just got Rob Dukes back. So I think they're going to re-record something, and I kind of like what Rob did with them. And I saw them at Bloodstock doing it, And so I'm kind of excited about that. The new Sodom record is really good. It feels more thrash than Sodom to me, but it sounds great. And the Destruction album was great. So yeah, I'm just kind of excited. I want to hear the new Crypta when they put it out, you know, because I really love where they're going now and how they've really worked hard and where they're at. So yeah, and Novosa, they're due something new. So friends of mine again. Yeah, there's a whole load of upcoming bands that I just want to hear stuff, and of course our new album I want to hear. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff going down, classic stuff and new stuff, you know. So yeah, that's another one of the things, you know, you're discovering new, and then everybody's producing new music too. And I did an interview once with a girl who was 22, French, and she said it was so nice to talk to you because you're old school. And I missed it all. I was born at the wrong time. I said, no, you were born at the right time. And she said, what makes you say that? I said, because when I was doing it, we had Motorhead and Saxon and Iron Maiden and the new wave of British heavy metal, and we had the American bands. I said, but you have everybody. You have a million labels, bands from all over the planet playing every style you could possibly think of, and Motorhead still on tour, Sabbath are still on tour, you can see Saxon, Iron Maiden. I said, so you have all of us and all of that. We didn't have all of that, we just had us. I said, so this is the right time to be alive. I said, just like lift it up, see everything, taste everything, listen to everything. I said, there'll be so much that will connect with you. I said, you know, we were searching for that connection. I said, you have got it at your fingertips. We never had it at our fingertips. You know, we had to, if I wanted to go and see my friend, I might have to walk for 3 miles to knock on his door to find out he's not in. And I don't know where he's gone. And he might have gone to the park. So now I walk another 2 miles to the park. And I don't find him. So now I'm walking 5 miles home. I said, but you can pick up a phone and within seconds you're chatting to them wherever they are. You know exactly where they are. You can then put a location finder and go right to where they're actually standing. We didn't have that. I said, so embrace where you are, because this is amazing, yeah.
All right, that's the last question before the end. After all these years on stage, in studio, etc., what have you learned? What are you proud of, and what do you regret?
I think, you know, regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. No, I think regrets, I have none. Because I don't want regrets, which is why I challenge myself and I do everything I can. You know, some mistakes I've made, but do I regret them? Well, if I hadn't done them, maybe I wouldn't be here. So maybe I was meant to make those mistakes in order to learn something, in order to be where I am. So everything you do has value, has meaning, and brings you to where you are. You just have to grow, and you have to learn, and you have to watch, and you have to listen. You know, I talk too much, but I listen more, because listening is the key to moving, to learning. But what am I proud of? Everything. When I was 14, sitting on my bed, I wanted to make one album, and I had about 8 vinyl records. That was it, 8. And 2 or 3 of them weren't mine, they were my parents. But I used to have them as my record collection, felt kind of special. But I thought, if I could make one album, I'd be happy for the rest of my life. And I made that album, and I made lots since. But if you took everything away and all I had was that one album, that's all I set out to do. So was I successful? Yes, because that's all I wanted to do, and I did it. Brilliant. I'd like to make a movie. If I could be in a movie, imagine that. Well, I did more than one. But if you take all the rest away, I did one. I'm successful. I didn't want to have a beach house and a Porsche and a castle and like more gold than I could eat. I just wanted to do that. I just wanted to do that. And I did them. So I succeeded. You know, so what do I want to do next? I want to eat a tomato sandwich at the top of the Eiffel Tower or whatever it is, you know. Then do it. Go for it. Do it. Once you've done it, that's your next bit of success. So now what do you want to do? I want to bungee jump at Victoria Falls. Then book your trip to South Africa and go to Victoria Falls and do it. You know, and so those are those things that inspire us. So I'm proud of everything that we did. I'm proud of everybody I met. I'm proud of all the music we've created and all the people I created it with, because I was privileged. Regardless of whether the ex-members hate me because they're ex-members and they just feel disgruntled, I don't really care. I'm proud I played with them all. I'm proud of every show we did. I'm proud of every piece of music we did, because it's part of who I am. It's my history, and I'm proud of my history. And I'm proud and humbled, and I was privileged to be involved with all of these people, regardless of because they were all talented. You know, bands fight with each other, but you're only a successful band if you've got talent. And we were, so they must have been talented. So I can't go, well, they were crap and they're shitheads, because they weren't. You know, they were fallible, because they're humans. And we're all fallible. We all make mistakes, we all make wrong choices, and we all get angry. But at the end of the day, did something great come out of it? Yes, it did. And I feel so proud of everything. When I look at my videos or my collection of my work and see it written down, I'm like, fucking hell, how did I do all that? And I'm still alive, and I'm still doing it. Imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So yeah, very proud, and regrets, none.
So thank you, Tony, for your time, and the last words are yours.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for an amazing interview. I said things that will be picked up and people will lose their minds over, and I don't really care. I think it's about being honest, and there's nothing to hide. So if you're honest with yourself, you don't have to hide anything. And so that's how it is. They're facts, they're truths, they're honesties. But I just want to thank you. And remember, you know, the music is the most important thing. It's not 1982, it's not 1969, it's not 2001. You know, every year there's a new 16-year-old or 17-year-old discovering music, and they might find an album that is their album. That's the album that makes them love Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath. And it could be Ozzy, it could be Dio, it could be Tony Martin. Whatever it is, it's their key into everything else. So respect people's individuality, respect their love for the music, and create. If you are a creator, keep creating, never stop, because somewhere, somebody out there who you might never meet, from a place you might never go, in a place you've never heard of, thinks you are the key to their existence. And you mean everything to them. So keep creating and keep reaching out. And the value is in people. So always respect and always love. Okay? The people. That's why we're here. People together. And that's what our music represents. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you on the road.